Well, it's great to talk to you. I mean, we've only gone back and forth on the Facebook.
Yeah,
And
that's
I have
great.
to tell you, I was very impressed. Somebody said, "Oh, you got to see this kid. He does. You may be right." And it was like, "Oh my God, you remind me of me when I was your age."
That's awesome. That's
I just.
awesome.
How old are you now?
I'm 25.
Okay, I just posted a thing on Facebook with a band. We made an album. I was 20, and I played. You should listen to it. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's great because I've been fortunate enough to do this, to do session work and play, and you and Roger Taylor from Queen and Mike Portnoy, you are, and Ringo, like, okay, four of my greatest influences, and it's so great that I managed to talk to you. Actually, today I was a bit nervous about this conversation, so I said I got to go to my practice room and play some drums because it eases the. And so I was like, what am I playing? And I thought, okay, just get your mind off the Liberty thing, just play something. And I
right.
started playing a few songs, then I ended up playing sometimes a fantasy. And I thought, no, you don't do that. Just get away from the Liberty thing. And I ended up playing some songs from Glass Houses because I think your drum sound is so great on that record.
That's right.
So raw. And so I do that. I do that.
It's funny. I thought, okay, I'm going to do this interview with Alex, and he plays a lot like me, and I know he does. And it's like, okay, I got to think of like, okay, why would he want to interview me? And I actually listened to Angry Young Man, a live version of Angry Young Man, right before I came on.
So that was just a small part of the discussion that I had last night with the one and only Liberty DeVitto, one of the most influential drummers of the pop rock scene ever. So if you've ever enjoyed a song or a record by Billy Joel, here's Billy. Liberty, right here, played the drums on it. Liberty DeVitto has played drums on all the major hit records by Billy Joel. They've sold more than 150 million copies worldwide. Right now, as we speak, hundreds of people around the world are listening to a Billy Joel song with Liberty on drums. He's toured the world with Billy for 30 years. He's played with a lot of major pop artists, including Paul McCartney. And I had a chance to interview him last night. I was a bit nervous, but he's such a great guy, and I think it turned out okay. So without further ado, here's my interview with Liberty DeVitto.
Can I start with a little story, like it's a true story? So
Yeah.
when I was a little kid, like 9 or 10, I had just started playing drums, so I knew a bit about drumming and how that worked. And so one of my favorite activities that I did was I used to watch television with my dad because we both loved music, and we had like MTV and VH1.
Right.
So I didn't like my drumming lessons because I thought all the drummers were boring, and I just didn't like them at all. And then one day we were just surfing through channels, and there was this guy playing drums. And, well, obviously I'm talking about you, but you looked like you were having so much fun, and I had never seen anyone play like that. And I went to Google, I looked for Billy Joel. I didn't know who he was.
Right.
I didn't know who you were at the time. It just said Liberty DeVitto drums. And I think it was at that moment that I think something clicked. And I said, well, I want to be like this guy. I want to play music and be a professional drummer. And I've been fortunate enough to have done this ever since.
Well, that's
And
wonderful. That's great.
you are,
I'm glad I was there to help.
yeah, you were probably my biggest drumming influence. And it's crazy that I'm talking to you right now.
Well, I felt the same way with Ringo. You read in the book when I met him, I
Yeah.
said, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And then he said, well, I'm glad you're not blaming me for it. At least you managed to make a career of it.
Yeah. And like, what do you feel when you're on stage? Because the first thing that I got from you was not your rudiments or your groove, or because I didn't know about that, but the love that you had and the energy that you had. You look like you're playing the gig that you're playing might be your last. That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting from you.
Well, I've always appreciated that we used to go on stage when we first started with Billy, and I still feel the same way, is that you play like it's the last gig that you're going to do. Like you could drop dead right after this show, but you got to be great because everybody's going to say the great show was so great. He died right after it, you know. And the last band that I've seen do that was the Foo Fighters. So I went to see the Foo Fighters, stood on the side of the stage and watched them. And they look like they don't care if they go deaf. They don't care if they have heart attacks. They're giving it their all, you know, and that's what we did with Billy. And I think that was part of our success, was the live show.
Yeah. Well, speaking about success, when did you realize you became successful?
I still don't think I'm successful.
Really?
No.
You didn't
No,
just wake up one morning and be like, wow, I'm actually doing this and I'm all over the radio and I'm touring the world.
well, I can remember actually the day that I knew that this is what I was going to do for the rest of my life was I was playing with my band Topper. You know, in the book I wrote that
Yeah.
Topper became the Billy Joel band, and we're playing in a club, and I was tired because I was also playing with another band. So I was playing 6 days a week in one afternoon. So by the time I was playing with Topper that night, I was really tired, but we were still going great, and it's so much fun playing with those guys. And I remember putting one hand on the snare drum and one hand on the floor tom and leaning back on the wall and going, well, I guess this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And you know, when I was playing the weddings, I resorted to the fact that if I have to play weddings all my life, at least I'm playing the drums. This is what I want to do. The drums gave me an identity. I love playing the drums. I love when people get off on what I'm doing. You know, I love to entertain, I guess. And so, you know, that passion still is with me. You know, I still love doing that.
So even if the Billy Joel thing hadn't happened at all, you would still be content with just playing the drums, even as a cover band, in a cover band.
Yes, because like yourself, you don't know what it's like to be me. I know what it's like to be me, and it's nothing like I thought it was going to be me. You know, like standing on the stage at Madison Square Garden and going, "This is it. This is this is it," and so you see it in a whole different way, and for us to maintain that image, that this is how it could be in your head, even though you know that it's not really the way it is. Um, you have to keep that alive too, and keep going for it. Keep going, ahead with that same passion that you had when you first started. I tell the guys in the band, one of the great things, we had played a couple of these drive-in gigs since this pandemic had started,
Mhm.
where people sit in their cars and listen on the radio, but you're playing live in front of them.
Yeah.
They don't applaud, they beep horns and stuff like that instead of applauding. So you really don't see the crowd. So I told them, I said, what we have to do is remember what it was like when we used to play live and nobody cared about us. Who did you play to? You didn't play to the crowd to get off because they didn't really care about you. They were having drinks, they're having conversations, whatever. You played to each other. And that's what we had to do again, was play to each other. Like I would play to the bass player and like, watch this. Hey, watch this. And he would do the same to me. And Richie Cannata would do the same thing. Like, I'm going to play this horn solo and it's going to blow you guys away, because that's to get that level of passion back again. We had to do that.
So in order to
fun.
get that to get that groove going and to sound as tight as you guys did and still do you think being friends, like being more than friends, being like a band of brothers, do you think that helps tighten the sound, or should a professional musician just get along with everybody and just do his job?
Well, I don't think that a professional musician will necessarily get along with everybody. You saw Hired Gun, right? Did you see the documentary? Well, Rob Zombie said it the best. When somebody leaves a band and you try to replace them, there's probably 1,000 guys that can play the licks that this guy was playing, but then you narrow it down to who looks good on stage and moves around and stuff like that, brings it down to like maybe 100 guys. And then the final thing is who you're going to hang with on the bus. And that cuts it down to maybe 2 guys that you can hang out with. So, yeah, Billy had an advantage of having us been a band for so long already. Myself, Russell, and Howie Emerson, who came in the beginning, and Doug Stegmeyer. And then with the addition of Richie Cannata, who fit like a glove, with us, he had to keep up with a lot of our humor and the things that we did because, like you say, a band of brothers. Yes, we were. You know, we
Yeah.
were trying to make it with Topper at the same time as we were playing. Billy was actually just a gig to have while we were trying to do something with Topper.
Yeah, I see. Well, I didn't know that. So you have this book out, and I'd like to show it to people. I don't think for people who'll be watching this on YouTube in Romania, I don't think you can get it here, but you can get it from the UK, and it arrives pretty quickly. It's called Life, Billy, and the Pursuit of Happiness. It's such a great book. I read it, I think, in a day, but then I had to reread it just to make sure I didn't miss anything. So easy to read. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to be a drummer. You just have to enjoy a good story. And this has a great story in it. And so, well, speaking of Romania, I was born here, I live here. And as you know, we used to be a communist country. So we had a dictator and censorship and all that stuff. So even if you guys wanted to come here and play with Billy, you couldn't have done that because you were like forbidden. You were Westerners. Right. You just couldn't come here and corrupt us with your music and long hair. But you did something amazing. And I know that you've talked about it a lot, but you've played the Soviet Union in 1987. So
yes.
I was born in the 90s. I didn't live through communism, but my parents did. And they sure would have liked to have seen Billy Joel in concert here, but they just couldn't do that. So how was the Soviet Union for you? How did you feel to go there?
Well, it was an amazing thing because, when I went to grammar school and, all through elementary school, it was in the 50s and the 60s. And we used to have to hide under our desks when there was an air, we practiced these air raid moves where we'd hide under our desks thinking that the Soviet Union
is just like Billy said in Leningrad.
Exactly like Billy said in Leningrad. Those stories were true. We actually did hide under the desk, like as if a bomb fell and a desk is going to protect us. It was ridiculous, these things that we had to do. But so we're getting fed a lot of propaganda about the Soviet Union. They were the enemy. You guys were the bad guys. We were the good guys, and so that's why when I boarded a plane in England, I knew some things about the Soviet Union, and there's this whole wall that was up and everything like that, and nobody can get out once they're in. And so it's like I'm getting on an airplane to go to this place where I think I'm going to be greeted by three-headed monsters breathing fire, and I'm on a plane, a German airplane, and I'm thinking, no, we beat them twice in World War I and World War II. Okay. And then I start to freak out because my name is Liberty. And it's like, what am I going to do? This is insane. Where am I going? What am I doing? But the thing that I took away was, first of all, music crosses all boundaries. All boundaries. It doesn't matter if you understand the language or not that Billy's singing in. It's the groove and the passion that they see when you're playing. That's what people grasp onto. Also, I stood in a spot in outside of our hotel in Russia, and I looked up at the sky, and the clouds were moving, and I said, "This is the same sky that's over us." These people are beautiful people. They're, it's the government against one government against another government. People are people everywhere. People love the same thing. I went into the parks. I saw how they shared a cassette tape. Guys stood in a circle with the cassette players, and one guy started the tape and the other guys recorded it. That's how they passed the Beatles songs around and stuff.
Yeah.
Or they had it on an old X-ray. They would make a record.
That's what they did in Romania too. They just bootlegged the hell out of records because they couldn't get them. They couldn't get the official releases.
Right, and that was amazing to me. Talking about a passion to get music, to hear that music. They only know Billy. They knew him as an American poet. That's what he was billed as.
An American poet.
Yes.
So he was really quite the biggest rock star of the U.S. at the time. He was a poet.
Yes. And there were three different people that were asked to do this gig in Russia. One was, I think, Stevie Wonder. Another one was Springsteen, and then Billy. But I think one was in the studio, one was already touring in the States or something. And Billy was like, okay, we could add this at the end of the bridge tour, you know? So it was an honor to go and play.
I think what you did there, I mean, people will talk about it in history books because I think Elton played there with Ray Cooper in the 70s, but
Yes.
it wasn't, it was nowhere near that, you know, big production that you guys took with you.
Right. We were the first band to do a full production.
Yeah. And
what
that's
they
historic.
saw, yeah, what they saw was what you would see in Madison Square Garden in New York City if we played. You
Well,
know?
I'm going to stop you right there. You said the magic words. You said Madison Square Garden. That's like the mecca of any musician. I mean, just playing there just once is a lifetime achievement. I tried to Google, couldn't come up. I couldn't find. I mean, how many times did you play Madison Square Garden anyway?
Oh, geez. I would say Billy's played like 100 times and over 100 times there, you know, and I'm sure I played like half that amount with him when I was with him.
So dozens of times.
Oh, so many times, like days in a row, Madison Square Garden. I remember like once being in my backyard when I was living on Long Island and having a pool in the backyard. And I was like, I don't want to get out of the pool to go to Madison Square Garden. You know, it's really when I was playing with Billy, Madison Square Garden backstage was a dump. It really was. It wasn't nice at all.
Wow.
So, but being in the city, right in the heart of the city, and playing that arena, you're absolutely right. It was a very big deal.
So is it true that it's built on springs? I heard that. So when people jump up and down,
it's suspended because underneath, it starts underneath with the subway of New York. Then on top of that is the Long Island Railroad, the railroad that takes you out to Long Island and Penn Station, which takes you to the other parts of the country. Then above that is Madison Square Garden. Mm-hmm. So Madison Square Garden is suspended.
Right.
We played there. We did a benefit. It was Don Henley put on a benefit for Walden Woods, and it was us, Sting, and Don Henley. And because we were the hometown boys, Sting refused to go on before us. He said, I am not going on before Billy Joel. There's no way. So he went on first. Then we went on. And there's a restaurant way in the back of Madison Square Garden, way up high behind the seats and everything, you know. And the bartenders were saying that the liquor bottles were falling off the shelves because it was bouncing. Like during Only the Good Die Young, it was bouncing so much. Yeah.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
I didn't know that. I knew the part with the springs. I didn't know the backstage part. So I'd like to talk about a bit about the recording process that you had with Billy. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you mentioned in this book that throughout your recording years with Billy, you recorded the tracks at the same time with the other guys in the band.
Yes. The setup was my drum was or over in the corner. A&R Studios, it was a really nice size studio. It was really great. The control room was a great size. And that was one of the benefits because we could all fit in the control room and stand there to listen to the playback rather than like squeezing and squished and stuff. So that was a bonus. And the room itself was big. I was in a corner with baffles, but not all around me, just, in front of the bass drum and stuff like that, blankets on some of the drums, And Billy was directly in front of me. Like, I would say maybe 20, 30 feet away from me. But Phil had built this thing. We called it the microwave. He did it with insulation that it slipped over the piano, which kind of cut down some of the leakage from the drums.
Right.
But when I did I did a book called, what was it called? Off the Record, where I took like 11 Billy Joel songs and took the drums off and explained what I did, and you could play along with Billy Joel, and you could hear the leakage because Billy also sang at the same time.
So it wasn't just the instrumental track with the vocals done separately. It was all done like the whole band. It was like a live performance.
It's just like a live performance. Yeah.
That's a lot different than the way they record these days.
Oh yeah, it's way different. I get calls for studio work all the time where guys have the whole track done, and
Yeah.
uh,
And
and you
it's not
go in and just put the
authentic.
drums on.
It's not human. You know, it's
No, you must get the same thing. Like they call you up. I want drums on this track. Can you come in and blah, 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 and you go in there and the track is finished, and they say, okay, here's the click, here's the track. What do you want more of? And you play along with it. You can't create. You're creating a part, but it's got to fit into what's already there.
yeah, right.
Rather than when we created the music, Billy came in with the song, but it wasn't in stone yet. So we were able to like mold that clay.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the main differences between you guys and other people that played for major acts, because you were really quite a big part of the songwriting process, not necessarily writing all the words. Well, in some case, I mean, you had some influence there as well, but the grooves and everything, you were like, I consider you guys an actual band with, a pretty famous frontman. But to me, you were a band, an actual band, you know?
Well, we were, like I said, with Topper, we were a band.
Oh,
Already.
yeah.
And it's almost like Billy joined Topper.
Singer.
Yeah, Billy joined Topper. That's what he
Yeah. Okay, so now I'd like to ask you another question when it comes to the recording process, because, well, you went through the 80s, and what happened in the 80s is people discovered drum machines and they started using them, well, more and more. And, well, some of it sounds good. Some of it, well, it's a bit cheesy if you listen to it now. My question is, did you ever feel a bit, well, let's say, threatened? Like you as a drummer, did you ever feel threatened in the 80s when people started going crazy about synthesizers that, all the people might say, Billy might say, well, I don't need you here on this record. I have this, drum machine and everybody's using it. So.
Well, I don't think Billy's music lend itself to a drum machine.
Yeah.
A drum machine was more of a dance thing. In the beginning, when Lynn first came out with that first, the Lynn drum, it was just basically a beat. You just put a beat down. It was terrible. But yeah, I remember talking to a bunch of drummers, having this dinner with the Long Island Drum Center, and they were saying that, what are we going to do about this? I mean, pretty soon they're going to be putting drum machines in the actual recording board. And so people just have to press that button too. And, it'll be insane. But luckily, a drum machine can't copy the feel of a real drummer. And Billy always loved that. Billy likes the tempo to change. If you play Sometimes a Fantasy, put it on the beginning of the song, and then lift the needle and put it on the end of the song's going faster at the end.
Yeah, what I sometimes do, I put on my headphones and I play along with you. Right. And it's a bit frustrating because I have to really follow you, and I can't get mad because you played with people. I'm just playing with, the song. And it's so human because it naturally changes tempo. It's not because, you are bad musicians. It's because that's where it was getting. It was the pinnacle of the song. The BPM is not the same as it was at the beginning. So I think that's a great factor in the authenticity of those recordings. And it's rare to find that in mainstream music these days.
Right. We used, Phil Ramone liked to use a click track, but only because, you run through the song a couple of times until you find that right rhythm, right? That right tempo. And Phil would set the click track at that tempo because we would speed up during the song, and we'd start it with the click. We'd start to speed up once it came to the first bridge or the first chorus or whatever. Phil would take the click out. If we were done recording that track and it wasn't the take that we wanted, Phil would use that click to show us where we started again. Because if we started, we'd start faster the next take, because you tend to do that, start again where you ended.
Right.
So to get back to the tempo that we felt good at, he used that click. The only songs that I think I played all the way through on the click was Running on Ice. You could hear the shaker in that. That's a click, There might be a couple of other ones, but
So,
yeah.
I mean, did you have the same recording process when you recorded with Paul? I was actually gonna get to that question a bit earlier. You actually recorded with Paul, Paul McCartney, obviously. So I didn't know that. I mean, I knew the song was with Ringo on drums, so I thought, well, that's good enough. But then a while later, I found out that "Beautiful Night" was originally recorded with you on drums 10 years prior.
Right. Right.
How did that feel like? I mean, for you as a kid, thinking that you'd be playing drums for Paul?
Well, let me tell you something, Alex. The funny thing is that in the book, I explain the whole getting up to the point of actually going in to record with him. You know, the
Yeah.
phone call and that whole thing. I don't even talk about what it was like to do the session. But I'm doing the audio book now, and I've added that in. I've added some different things in.
Wow, cool.
Book. And one of the things is that I went there thinking like, what does Paul McCartney want with me? He doesn't know who I am. This is Paul McCartney. He's a Beatle. This is insane. This is crazy. I drive down my driveway before I go catch the train to go into the city, and I go into the mailbox, and Rolling Stone is in there, and he's on the cover. And I'm like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm getting really like nervous. I read the article, get in there. Phil Ramone wants us in there early because he wants everything set up and perfect for when he comes in. I'm standing there. We're standing there listening to tapes. My drums are all set up and everything like that. And all of a sudden, the door opens, and the first one to come in is Linda, his wife. He was married to Linda at the time.
Right.
She points right at me and says, "I know who you are. We've been watching your videos." I was like, "What? Are you kidding me? This is insane." You know? And then he walks in, and let me tell you something. It was like the Red Sea parted, you know? It was like he was Paul McCartney breathing the same air I am. You know, it was insane. And I actually, I shook his hand, introduced myself to him, and we talked for a minute, and then he went to the other guys. And as he went to the other guys, I kind of backed myself out of the room into a hallway to talk myself down, you know?
Wow.
And this side's going like, "Oh, come on, he's another musician. You're going to play with him. It's going to be great." And this side's going, "No, he's not. He's a Beatle. There's a Beatle in there," So it was insane. But the gig itself was fantastic. There was no click track. We just played. He played piano, and we did 2 songs that day. And in between the 2 songs, he played like Little Richard stuff and Chuck Berry, all that kind of stuff that the Beatles used to play before they were famous. So we kind of rocked all that stuff out, and it was really cool. He was such a nice guy. We talked about kids when we had lunch.
I mean, isn't that what we do with our musical heroes? We think they're kind of superhuman, and then you end up in a room with them, and they're like, "Okay, well, this guy, is human." I mean, maybe talented and pretty much a genius, but he's a human, just like me.
Yeah, exactly like that. I go online, and I joined this forum, Billy Joel Retold or whatever it was, because I get a kick out of watching with it. Some of these people are like, "Whoa, take it easy, man. Billy's just a regular guy."
So you've toured a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
What is the biggest myth about touring, about being, quite famous in the rock and roll world, that people still think is true? When you tell people that you're a drummer and you did this and you did that, what is the thing that they say that, "Oh, so you must have done this, or you do that backstage," and you're like, "No, that's a myth."
Right. Well, part of it is this takes drugs and rock and roll. That kind of comes and goes, and we were fortunate enough to have like these huge hit records that were like, and when Just the Way You Are came out, women couldn't believe that we were sensitive guys that understood that. It's really silly. But yeah, so that stuff was crazy. But the one of the biggest myths is like, what do you guys do backstage? You like warm up, you practice, and
exactly.
stuff like that. No, no, we don't do that. What we talk about it. If we talk to each other, some people come backstage that we know, and we just talk to them, and you know.
Yeah, nowadays it's just like a bunch of guys looking at their iPhones backstage.
Right.
That's the wild party that goes on backstage. Just a couple of guys scrolling through Facebook before
Right.
the
What you're doing now backstage when you're playing with your bands, that's what you're going to be doing when you're playing in the garden one day. You're going to be backstage looking through, you know.
Well, that's good to hear. So, well, people, nothing goes on backstage, right? Other than just dudes checking their phones. I was going to ask you a bit about mental health. On a more serious note.
Yeah.
You know, mental health is not widely discussed. Well, it's more discussed than it was in the past, and that's a true blessing. But musicians' mental health, because musicians go through a lot. There's a lot of uncertainty, you know, financial problems and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you, first of all, how did you manage to, I mean, you talk about it in the book, but was there a time when you thought about quitting?
Oh yeah. When Billy was Billy's always been under a lot of pressure. You know, having a record deal and being in the position that Billy Joel was in, it's a lot of pressure on somebody to have to write. I explain it in the book, to have to write
Right.
an album of 14 songs, which 4 of them at least have to be top 40 hits. You know, you're under that gun, and you're trying to deal with your family at home too, and the pressure gets to you, and you know you start to abuse things. So when I saw Billy's doing that, you know, more than everybody else was doing it, that's when I thought to myself, if I didn't have a family that I was supporting at the time, I would have liked to have walked out, you know, quit the band.
So,
But I didn't. I stayed there, and you know, it was hard. And Doug too. Doug Stegmeyer, that was another one. Like he got really depressed, you know, and he was, you know, had a problem with the booze and drugs, and it just happens because you have so much time when you're on the road. You play for 2.5 hours. That's it. We go to the gig. We went to the gig at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We were done by 10:30, going back to the hotel. You
right.
know,
So,
what do you do?
were there times when you just hated the drums?
Yeah, I hated the
I don't want
gig.
to see you. I don't want to play you this month or today.
Yeah. Just
How do you go through that? I mean, how do you get past that when you have to do a gig?
well, you kind of you try to grab that passion again. You know, the reason why you're there, how you got there. You know, why am I here? I'm sitting here, and all these people are expecting to see something. You know,
Right.
and you don't want to let them down. You know, there was a couple of times when I know there's a video from Germany on the River of Dreams tour, and you
Frankfurt
could
video, I think.
what's that?
Frankfurt? Was it in Frankfurt?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and big crowd, and Billy at the time now was going through the divorce with Christy when we did that, and you can see it on his face. The man is like worn out. He's been beat up, not just musically, you know, because he's rebuilt himself after his manager took all that money, you know, during the Stormfront
Yeah.
tour. So he's back on his feet again that way. But now he's going to get divorced. You know, he's having problems at home. And when you're on the road, something happens at home. All you can do is make a phone call. What could you possibly do to help remedy this situation? You get a call from your wife or your girlfriend, and oh, this happened and that happened, and you go like, okay, I'll be home in 3 weeks. Don't worry about it. You know, and you hang up the phone and you just go to the bar and you start like, you know, somebody else that's happy there goes, come on, just have a drink with me. You know, the next thing you know, you're talking slurring, you know.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big problem with, you know, being on the road all the time. And I was wondering when you play, like you have a musical ego. I think all musicians do. I mean,
Yeah.
we as humans have this ego. It controls us all the time. So do you ever feel like when you play that there's a voice inside your head, and instead of just playing for the song, what, like, you know, you're supposed to do, there's a voice inside your head that says, play more. Do the triplet drum fill you learned last night. Impress them, show them. You know, you don't play the straight groove. Do you ever have that problem with the ego, and the ego interferes with your playing? And how do you deal with that?
Playing live with Billy, you know, because we were so spread out, the stage was so big, it was hard to improvise or do anything. But sometimes I would, because I like said, I think I can do this role that will fit here. This fill is going to fit in this next part coming up. And I would do it. And if I screwed it up, Billy would actually say into the microphone, "What the hell was that?" You know, 18,000 people now just heard that I made a mistake, you know, that I screwed up, you know. So, and a lot of people like that fill in the middle of Still Rock and Roll to Me, when it goes from the shuffle to the straight
Yeah.
fill, yeah, that thing. If I don't do that, people are disappointed because they want to air drum that.
It's like Ringo. It's like Ringo's drum
Exactly.
parts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really crazy. You want to do other things, but you know, with the Lords of 52nd Street now, when we do My Life, I don't do the normal break that I usually do in My Life. I do more. You know, I had a friend that one of the guys that plays in the band. He said, "I'll come up the stage and he'll go, 'You really played a lot tonight.' I always know when you're going to overplay is when the editor from Modern Drummer is in the audience." He thought to overplay.
That's when the ego kicks in.
Yeah. He's my friend, Billy Amendola. He's the editor, one of the editors.
Yeah, I know him. Yeah.
Yeah. And I always overplay when he's there.
Your drum fills, yeah, as you mentioned, yeah, they're part of the songs. You started at least 2 records. They start with your drum fill. That's An Innocent Man,
yeah,
with Easy Money, and Allentown.
Yeah, Allentown, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, to
Uptown Girl starts with a big fill too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Any problems with tinnitus that you have?
Oh, yeah, I did.
That's a problem, right?
I had, you know, I've had my right knee replaced, a full total knee replacement in the right knee. Of course, I think it's from pounding that bass drum so hard. Yeah, I mean, I tear into it. I'm a toe guy.
I know. That was the first thing I thought about. I mean, this guy hits them so hard. That's really cool. I want to play that like that too.
Yeah, and I've had tinnitus in here, in this part, you know, and my shoulder, you know, it pops.
Yeah.
But what I did was I won't say that I'm a vegan, but I eat a plant-based diet now.
Okay.
And this all went away.
And your hearing, like ringing and stuff?
Shot. My hearing is shot. As a matter of fact, I just went to the audiologist last Wednesday, and I'm getting upgraded. I wear hearing aids.
Okay.
I don't wear them when I play live because, you know, I play loud enough that I don't need them. But like right now, I have them on, and I'll tuck one of them into the headphone.
Okay.
So it picks up the sound. But yeah, there was a time when I'd be talking to people at a dinner table, or they'd be talking to me, and my wife would say, "He can't hear you. You got to talk louder. You got to talk louder." You know, my hearing went. I'd say about 8 years ago. It constantly started to go downhill, but all of a sudden, once it just dropped. I have what they call a ski slope. It starts to go down, and then all of a sudden goes, whoa, way down. The high end is like gone.
You guys
Especially in the left ear with the hi-hat side.
Oh, right. The left ear. And you guys played with, before the age of in-ear monitors, you played with like huge monitors on stage every night almost.
Yes. We used to, the sound company had this, they were famous for having these speakers called S4s that they would hang from the ceiling. And that was the sound that you heard. My monitors was split in half on both sides, an S4.
Yeah.
You know, so it was loud. And Billy's piano had to be loud.
Yeah,
you know?
that's crazy. That's crazy.
I sat in behind Elton's piano once and just hit the keys. Oh my God, it was so loud. It really hurt.
Yeah, I mean, Billy did those tours with Elton,
Yeah.
And I actually interviewed Charlie Morgan a while back, and he talked about how he fell on stage at some point, and you ate some bad shrimp at some
Yes.
gig, and he took over the drumming duties because he knew the he knew the Billy songs. So yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of stuff can happen on the road. Now, just two more questions. First of all, I mean, you are part of this organization called Little Kids Rock,
Yes, sir.
where you provide lessons and instructions and you do interviews and stuff. How important do you think musical education is for children that like to play? Because you haven't had a proper drum teacher. You're self-taught.
Right. I'm self-taught because the situation when I started to play drums was a, an odd situation. It was because the Beatles had just performed on the Ed Sullivan Show, and you know, everybody thought these rock bands were going to be a flash in a pan and stuff like that, but they ignited people that had nothing. Look, I was in school and I wasn't good at sports. I really had nothing to offer. You know, uh, I wasn't a good student. I hated sports, and the drums gave me an identity. When I started to play the drums, you know, it gave me an identity. I realized I had to learn myself because the stuff I wanted to know, they weren't going to teach me. They wanted to teach me jazz and stuff like that. And I was like, I want to cut through that and I want to jump right to what I want to do, you know?
Right.
So the thing about Little Kids Rock is they start the kids, their mission is they feel that if you teach a kid one chord, he can play 25 songs with that one chord on a guitar. You teach him two chords, he's up to like 50 songs now. You teach him the full progression of those three chords, he could play 150 songs, you know, and start to teach them the stuff that they want to learn. A lot of piano players, you meet a lot of friends that played piano or something like that, and they say, "Oh, I used to play piano, but I got really bored with it. They were teaching me Mozart and all this other stuff, you know." And they always say, "I wish I continued, you know, studying piano." If you were to teach them Beatles songs that they love and can recognize, eventually they'll go back to think like, when did the Beatles learn how to play this? Oh, Mozart. Who's that guy? Let me go investigate, you know? Like if you were listening to me in the beginning and that's how you learned how to play, you
Yeah.
would think like, what did he listen to learn to play? You know, and you go back and hear those guys,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So Little Kids Rock teaches the kids what the songs they want to know, you know, they want to learn. And it really, it gets them interested and gets them fired up.
So it's a more like it's kind of a like anti-traditional approach to musical education.
Oh, it's really
Yeah,
anti-traditional, you know,
it's
and it's
cool.
also,
Makes
it's
it
always,
cool.
yeah, it's also put in the schools where the music curriculum has been taken out, you know,
Right.
so, you know, I don't know exactly how much it costs to start a Little Kids Rock, but they have people that instruct, like the history teacher, teach them how to play three chords on a guitar. And then he's teaching the kids how to play those three chords. And then they'll come back and they'll learn more. The teacher will learn more stuff to teach the kids. You know, a good teacher only is one page ahead of the student, you know?
Right.
So, you know, so they're learning too while the kids are learning.
That's cool. That's
Yeah.
such a great thing that you decided to, you know, like share all the info that you had, and not just uh, music theory or rudiments, but like real showbiz experience that might be
Yeah.
valuable for kids that actually want to pursue a career in this business.
Yeah, and one of the greatest payoffs for me is that every year they do a gala to raise money, and they do it at a great venue in New York City, and they get the people, and we get to play with like last year I played with Steve Miller, Warren Hayes, you know, people like that. We play. Usher was there, you know, those kind of things, you know.
Yeah, that is great. Um, so now for the like question that everyone likes to hear, like I'd like to hear it, your answer. What makes a good drummer?
Listening,
Listening.
listening to what's going on around you. You know, it's really funny because we we um, we are the guys that get people up off their ass. It's us. It's our playing. I think a band is only as good as its drummer, and the
Yeah.
reason why I say that is because you can see a band that the guitar player is great, you know, and he's doing all these ripping licks, and the bass player is great, and they're playing all your favorite songs and everything like that. But the drummer's lacking. He just stinks, you know, he's not good. And you go, yeah, the band was okay, but the drummer was like, you know, they didn't move me. You can walk into a garage with a bunch of kids playing, and the drummer is like so into playing. He's putting everything he's got into it. And you go, this kid's on fire. This band is great, because you're judging that band from the drums up. You know, that's how you judge a band. That's what I think, you know, because it's the feel. It's what we feel that comes across. You know, that's as important as the lyric and what everybody else is playing. You got to start that foundation. We are it. You know?
Yeah. So you, as a drummer, what you're saying is you have to know what the song is about. You have to know the lyrics. You sing along with the lyrics. A lot of musicians, a lot of people that are not singers. Some of them don't know the lyrics to the songs. They're just like focused on the chords. So got to know the vibe, the songs, the lyrics. You got to listen to the other people in the band. So it's not really, you're saying it's not really about how fast you play or the chops that you have. It's really not about that.
You know, you look at all these guys that it's always like, I saw the drummer last night. He was the greatest drummer in the world. Why was he great? Oh, he's so fast. He played his solo. It was so fast. You know, it's like, well, you know, how was the band? Oh, they were okay. But, you know, this drummer played really fast when he did his drum solo. Yeah, right. Okay. Last night, I went to see a band. They were great. Who were they? U2. How was the drummer? He was great. I mean, the whole band was great. Everything was great, you know? It's
right.
Like, you know?
You're an integral part of something.
Right. I saw the Beatles. Oh, how were they? They were great. Oh, what did the drummer do? He just played. He played. You know?
Right. So now, I mean, you're recording an audiobook.
Yes.
What else? What else are you doing? What have you been doing? I mean, last year I know you promoted your book and released it, but well, it's definitely a lot of uncertainty surrounding the gigs and
yeah.
What musicians might do in the future. So what are your plans other than this audiobook?
Well, you know, it's funny. I got a phone call today about somebody said, it was actually a publisher, and he said, well, what do you think about doing part 2? It's like, are you kidding me? This was hard enough.
They said that you like wrote it. It's 15 years in the making, this book.
Yeah. And, part 2. What do I do? Throw people under the bus now?
Okay.
You know, no, but the Lords of 52nd Street, we will be rocking once this virus is over. I mean, I know I'm going for my shot on February 16th, my first one. You know, finally got a
with the Slim Kings as well.
Slim Kings too. So, you know, Slim Kings have been doing those like podcasts. We did 2 of them.
Right.
One was from Michael's, the singer's studio. He's got a studio in his house. The first one, and the other one was from a place called Daryl's house, a little club. We were the only ones there with these 2 technicians, and it's fun. Because I love to play. I don't care where I'm playing. I'll just love to play.
Okay, well, I'll send you a link when this is posted. It'll be in Romanian, but I mean, anyway, just for you to see it, I'll post it.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
As well, the podcast, you know, the video. Hopefully, it's been recorded. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say. Well, thanks again for doing this.
Well, listen, if you ever come to Brooklyn, I'll take you after pizza. Cool.
And yeah, I'd love to do that. And I'd like to come to a Lords of the 52nd Street show as well.
Sure. Take you out to Richie's studio. We'll do everything.
Cool. Thanks a lot,
my friend.
Thanks a lot.
Good
and have a good day. And I can't wait to hear the audiobook.
Terrific.
Cool.